2020 reaffirmed many of my qualms with the video game industry that have been festering in my soul these past few years. AAA studios pumped out bloated and unnecessary sequels in The Last of Us Part 2 and Doom Eternal, souring the fond feelings I had of the games they succeeded. The slimy tendrils of the brands who still refuse to be silent wrapped around the few mainstream games I did enjoy this year, manifesting hideous Fall Guys beans and setting up shameful islands in Animal Crossing to cash in on the trend du jour. Also, did no one tell the rapist-elect that he maybe shouldn't get a private island in a video game meant primarily for kids? Especially after, you know. Thankfully, indie game creators were there to breathe hope into my games library. Something must have been in the indie game dev water 3 to 4 years ago, because this year was unequivocally the year of the roguelike and light. Hades, Spelunky 2, Toxicant, Rogue Legacy 2, Going Under, Risk of Rain 2 version 1.0, Undermine, Scourgebringer, hell, even the original Rogue returned to Steam this year to remind us all where it started. Thing is, I'm not a big fan of roguelikes or lights, so while I found great joy in watching the Rogue fans in my life gorge themselves this year, I instead turned to the front page of itch.io and Steam to find my next meal. The indie scene proved to me a new concept, whether swung and missed or executed brilliantly, will always be more interesting than retread ground cashing in on brand recognition or nostalgia. Sorry, Spelunky 2, Super Meat Boy forever. Just like in 2019, most of the games I fell in love with this year further entrenched me in my favorite design mantra, quality over quantity. Most of these games can be beaten in a few hours. The few bigger games I did connect with this year were primarily ways for me to spend time with friends who I weren't able to see in person for obvious reasons. But even those longer experiences are still quality experiences, free from most of the vomit-inducing monetization models that plague most mainstream games. So here are my top 10 favorite video games released in the past 368 days. I hope you find something that piques your interest, and cheers to more amazing indies in 2021. My girlfriend made me this iced coffee before she went to work this morning. I love you, Tori, so much. Number 10 on my list is Tetris Effect Connected, released for the Xbox One, Xbox Series XS, and Windows, November 10th, 2020. Tetris Effect blew me away when I beat it in virtual reality back in 2018, so I was skeptical the non-VR version launching aside the new Xboxes and Windows would be able to impress me in the same way. It didn't impress me, not in the same way, but instead impressed me with the coolest shakeup to the Tetris formula I've seen in my almost 2 decades playing Tetris. In the new connected mode, up to 3 players join forces to defeat a single enemy's screen. But the kicker is once the players have cleared enough lines, they initiate a single connected space where all their team screens join forces and they begin alternating dropping pieces onto a shared screen. This fucking blew my mind the first time it happened. I got into a rhythm with my teammates where we were finding our next spot while they were still placing theirs and dropping pieces within seconds of each other, filling up the screen to send as many lines possible at our foe. It was the most surprising moment I encountered in a game this year. One I probably wouldn't have been surprised by if I'd read up on the game at all or watched a single trailer, but I just saw it on Game Pass and jumped in. I went back to replay the Journey mode, which still owns, but I'm desperately looking for people to play Connected with, and since it's crossplay, if you've got Game Pass, hit me up. The 9th game on my list is Superhot Mind Control Delete, released on July 16th, 2020. Developed and published by Superhot Team. Everyone knows the pitch for Superhot. Time only moves when you move. It's a concept first executed in 2016's Superhot, and then in virtual reality the next year, and then ported to every platform under the sun. Superhot Team took some time away from the spotlight to begin publishing games, like one of my favorite 2019 gems, Frog Detective 2. But they returned this year with what started as an expansion turned into a full-fledged sequel in Superhot Mind Control Delete, a game given free to everyone who owns Superhot, which was pretty dope. This is one of the few roguelites I really dug this year, as each level is a series of challenge rooms with a selection from a random group of upgrades available after clearing each one. I found these bite-sized runs perfect to mediate the rapid boredom that sets in for me in other roguelites and likes. If you liked the original Superhot, chances are this one's already free for you in your inventory, And if you like roguelites and want to see the FPS take on the increasingly crowded genre, then I recommend this game for you. Number 8 on my list is Animal Crossing New Horizons, developed and published by Nintendo, directed by Aya Kyogoku, and released on March 20th, 2020. For me, New Horizons is going to live and die in 2020. It released the week I started working from home, and I almost didn't get it because mall security shut down the line I was at the EB Games in the Halifax shopping center. But thankfully, my much bolder friend Chris got us in there. I played it pretty much every day from when it launched until The Last of Us Part 2 release. I've booted it back up twice since that day, and both times ran around my house killing all the cockroaches and walked around my island remembering I did pretty much everything I wanted to do, which was mainly roll credits and find all the fossils. And that's that, but that's all this game needs to be. I had pretty much the exact same experience with New Leaf back in 2013, although maybe I played it a little bit longer after the big Amiibo update, and if New Horizons ever gets a bigger content expansion, I'll gladly hop back in. But in a year where my girlfriend and I needed something to do besides sit around inside and be sad, I'm so glad this game was there for us to dive into, to give us routine, something to obsess over, and something to connect us to our friends. I went to one of my friends' graduation parties in this game, and it was adorable, and I wouldn't have been able to have that connection with my friends outside of this game. Well, maybe I would have, but it wouldn't have been nearly as cute. It's not my favorite game of 2020, but it is most certainly the game of 2020. Number 7 on my list is Art of Rally, developed and published by Fun Selector Labs in Vancouver, released on September 23rd, 2020. For someone who failed his driver's test multiple times, I've only really excelled at driving in Mario Kart, a game I busted out multiple times in 2020 to absolutely whoop my friends. Sporting activities like Tony Hawk Pro Skater's Tapes and Letters, Art of Rally has several overworld levels to play through at your leisure, or meticulously crafted tracks to race through with your rally car of choice. As a car illiterate player myself, this game welcomed me into its arms and let me have a great time on my own terms, setting my own goals and nudged me in ways that never felt as condescending as other racing sims I've played. And for that, I love it. Art of Rally is also a very different racing game to any I've played before, in that it asks a much deeper question. Is driving art? Not are cars art, or is a winding road through a beautiful landscape art, but is the act of driving art. In the same way a painter's brush creates art on the canvas, does a driver's car create art on the road? Is the motion of a metal body on rubber treads through a space a form of expression in the same way a dancer's fluid movement across a stage is? Well, yeah, it is. Number 6 on my list is Super Crush KO, released January 16th, 2020. What if the combat of Guacamelee was placed in a linear level-based arcade game that got soaked in a pastel swirl of cute colors and cuddly characters? That would be Super Crush KO, the next game from Canadian indie action powerhouse Vertex Pop. Consistently the beacon of hope in a genre increasingly abandoned by indie studios in recent years, like the almighty Housemarque. This game is cute as heck, and it's tight as hell, and I think largely forgotten about in the conversation this year due to releasing so early in January. That and not being a roguelike, but whether you check it out on PC or Switch, you're in a good time. I loved every stage, every boss, every cute little cutscene that punctuated between levels. It's cute as hell, and I think you should check it out. And save that cat! Number 5 on my list is Blazeball, an online browser baseball simulation game developed and published by the Game Band and released on July 20th, 2020. The internet phenomenon none of my in-person friends would check out, except for Sean. Bless you, Sean. Blazeball captivated me and pretty much my entire digital friend group for months. What is Blazeball? It's essentially a web-based score box and standings for a fake league that plays a version of baseball that was virtually unrecognizable by the 5th or 6th season due to all the wacky rules that get layered on when fans vote one in at the end of every season. For a much more comprehensive and entertaining explanation of the internet phenomenon that is known as Blazeball, watch People Makes Games' great video on the best sport to grace the internet. Also, shout out to the amazing Blazeball Discord and community who are very welcoming, very friendly, and some of the nicest people I got to meet this year. Number 4 on my list is Going Under, developed by Aggro Crab and published by Team 17 Limited, released on September 24th, 2020. Internships are heck, and Going Under was the only other roguelite this year that really resonated with me. Going Under is an efficient 3D fighter, elevated into another hemisphere by its amazing art style partnered with a brutally funny and scathing script. Skewering nonsensical startup culture, vertical monopolies, the desperate job market, and so much more. Going Under doles out its brilliant story in between runs in a way that kept me coming back again and again to hear more. Janice fights with whatever she can pick up, and this absurd inventory complements the game's absurd enemies, levels, and premise. Doing labor for free for a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Fuck that! Going Under speaks to me in a spiritual level, in my own meme-laden vernacular, and in my own cynical tone. It's the most Stephan game I played this year, which might be a deterrent based on how well you know me, but that's why I loved it so much. Check it out. Number 3 on my list is Signs of the Sojourner, developed and published by Echo Night Games, released on May 14th, 2020. Dialogue choices in games suck ass, most of the time anyway. They're often arbitrary decisions meant to provide some sense of control while guiding you to the 1 or 2 endings the narrative designers need you to land on. Different flavors sprinkled over the same low-fat, butter-free, disappointing popcorn. Signs of the Sojourner asks the all-important question, what if they didn't suck? What if there weren't any dialogue choices at all, but rather we designed a visual system to convey the often messy, often difficult ways that human communication actually works. Players build a deck of cards, with a symbol on each side and sometimes with a special effect on the top. Players place these cards alternating in turn with the person they're talking to on a horizontal line of spaces, trying to connect the symbols on each side to successfully move the conversation forward. It's an incredibly simple system that devastated me each time I couldn't connect with someone I needed to, and felt so good each time I reached the end of a conversation successfully. Nothing has more accurately captured the nuances and frustrations of actually talking to people, and it's worth checking out to see the system executed even if you don't care about narratives and even if you don't like deck builders, as I often don't. Number 2 on my list is Nocturne, developed by JP Lackey and published by Co-op Mode, released May 26, 2020. As I said on our 2020 wrap-up episode of the CanadianGameDevs.com podcast, Nocturne is like a nice cup of hot chocolate. It's a little late-night adventure to a local bodega to find a present pour mon bichette. A solo dev's little passion project, this game feels ripped out of a magical night in the designer's own Quebecois life, with fantastical astrological elements added and very Canadian references made. Whatever you do, make sure you insist on using the facilities here, as that tangent was one of my favorite of the whole experience, the one I missed on my first playthrough. Also, play through this game several times. It's short, you can make it home to your bichette in 10 minutes if you want, or 30 to 40 minutes if you really want to meander and test the cashier's patience. I want more intimate, more personal games like Nocturne in my life. I applaud the indie game co-op studio, Co-op Mode, for letting their designers put out these passion projects with their support, and I hope more studios will follow suit. My favorite game from 2020 is Kentucky Route Zero, Act 5, the end of a 7-year-long episodic adventure that wrapped up earlier this year. Developed by Cardboard Computer and published by Annapurna Interactive on consoles and PC. I really struggled to write down on my script in front of me why I liked Kentucky Route Zero so much. I started with some condescending bit about how the first act came out in 2013 when I thought Hotline Miami was the peak of what indies could achieve, but I don't want to be that this year, and I also don't want to condescend. Kentucky Route Zero is an amazing experience. In many ways, it doesn't really give you a choice in the point-and-click adventure in a way other games do. You have a choice in what you say, what you do, different branches of single conversations, but you are guided on roughly the same experience, and it is up to you and your curiosity as a player to see everything this game has to offer. This game makes exceptional use of sound design. The simple act of picking up a phone in the game, depending on which ear you place it on, you'll hear it coming out of that side of your headphones. I also strongly recommend you play this game with headphones and in the dark. With the release of Act 5, Annapurna Interactive also released a complete PC and TV edition. This update brought little interim episodes, little mini stories that you played between each act. These are some of my favorite experiences in Kentucky Route Zero, which I replayed in December to make sure it was my favorite game from 2020. These were simple little experiences I'd never had in a game, like sitting in a student play, watching everything unfold around me, or going through a virtual museum, trying to experiment and trying to play with the different installations, or calling a phone number that I found on a desk that hooked me up to a wanderer's guide to the world around me. It's a game whose meanings are hard to suss out, but ultimately very interesting and rewarding to suss out. And I don't know if what I think the game is trying to say is actually what the game is trying to say, but I don't think that matters. Much like my experience with Night in the Woods, coincidentally another game about a late-stage capitalist hellscape in the Midwestern United States that features an endearing and well-written cast of characters whose life's falling apart around them as their government fails them, as the economy fails them. But they have each other, and they look out for each other. It's a game who presents this failing world as a world still worth living and exploring, punctuated by beautiful moments shared with friends. It's a game I still think about all the time, and whose ending is something I don't think I'll ever really understand, and I don't think I need to. In many ways, Kentucky Route Zero is about the journey, not the destination, and I hope more people will go on that journey, because I think it's really worth it. Kentucky Route Zero is such a different game than anything else I've played. It's unique and refreshing in a way I really needed this year, after I was getting more and more cynical with all the games I was playing and seeing, and all the news and cyberpunk. It provides a sense of peace and a pacing that I really appreciated and really needed this year. It's not a coincidence that when you Google Kentucky Route Zero, the people also search for fill in on Google is amazing games like Outer Wilds, What Remains of Edith Finch, Oxenfree, Disco Elysium, Night in the Woods, and several other amazing games. I think this game transcends what games and interactive media can be in many ways. And that probably sounds douchey and pretentious, but I think it's true. Kentucky Route Zero, in a story that's very hopeless, gave me a lot of hope for video games, for how we can pull together and work together and live and love together to make the world a better place and to make life worth living. It's on everything. Check it out.